Hey folks, and welcome back to the Daughters Beginning series. Today we are facing a Rezakiri, the end boss in the close beta, at least for now. If you're watching this later, don't hesitate to let me know. And of course I want to take this time to actually introduce what I'm doing now, since I'm only going via gameplay and not in actually a guide video. So I figured, why not just show off on how to beat this guy in Pacific, instead of just showing you what he can do, because you probably already know what he can do. So first things first, we actually going to run straight forward to him, so we can actually trick him into thinking that we are way far ahead of him. So we just cast his bubbles on the ground, these little spheres you just saw. Of course you can do another thing called with some straight up laser shooting at you, which kind of depends on him, where he tries to figure out your position. That's why I'm trying to trick him by running straight forward. Because otherwise he would just do this attack, come next to me, and then try to do his rotations when I'm out of position. So that's a little thing, little side note you might want to contribute to your fight, instead of just being surprised by what he's doing. As well in this fight, he's actually got some RNG rotations where it's not just those rotations. He will keep doing it till he dies. There's actually some RNG in this now, which is pretty nice in my opinion. But of course, besides that, there are some certain mechanics that will still be triggered every time you will face him. For example, like his exhaust after such attacks like this, where he tries to cast his big spheres off the wall of the sky. This is a different thing when he does it on the ground, since he will have to exhaust, or will be exhausted after doing it. So keep that in mind. Of course, he can be exhausted as well if he casts the spheres on the ground for 2 times, for example. Most of the times it will happen to be like the lasers you just saw, after which he will then 100% do his stomp on the ground. Of course, the stomps are kind of different, since it's possible to get 3 different stomps depending on his Ether Rage, normal rage, or just an usual Rezakiri, like you get him from the start. The other thing is that if he's in his Ether Rage, like now for example, he does things like that, where his radiant attacks, his effect attacks, will be multiplied by number and of course in damage. So keep that in mind. If you want to actually go in here, and don't hesitate to go all in like me, I suggest you farm your Shroud gear to maximum, since then you can go for a lifesteal build, lifesteal tank build, instead of being one shot all the time. And of course there are certain mechanics that you can dodge with the axes, for example, or any other two-hand weapon. If you need a guide for chainblades, just check Danuko's channel out. I have probably a link in the description, or on my follower base, where you can find a main chainblader and main chainblader gears, of course, guides of course, since I'm a main axe player, so I will focus my guides on axes as well. There's some overall overviews about certain things. Like this, for example, when he tries to resurrect, don't be shy and attack him, because when he's on the ground, you can basically try to hold him on the ground, but you probably will need a berserk potion to do so, since even though you try this as 4-man group, you all need some berserk potions to do this, to keep him constantly on the ground, constantly breaking him, like with some World Records videos, where you got no chance at all. The other thing is, we are now facing some spheres that he spawns around you while he's casting those little balls coming next to you. We're coming close to dropping him, and he will try to flee from now in the next few minutes. That's an indicator for that. And of course he just enraged on us, which we luckily didn't have to face in the sphere, because he then would just stomp us in the ground while we can't dodge it in the sphere. The next thing you might want to consider is farming him for weapons and gear. That's also why I'm hitting him like I just did on the tail, where you actually have to hit the end of the tail to get the gem, to hit this part I'm just hitting now, in between the legs, to get a chitin plate, and of course the chitin fragments are from the claws itself. The rest you need is from his head. So keep that in mind if you want to just farm him or simply slay him, because then it actually would matter if you attack him now, for example, or if you would attack him just straight ahead while you got a chance to. Another thing, a quick side note, is you just saw him move forward to me instead of moving backwards for a bit. where it tries to, for example, like this attack, it makes him move a bit to one hand side, either left or right, but it will mainly make him go back a bit, you know, like not much, only a feet, only 1 foot or some centimeters. But that's an indicator for his bomb attack, so keep that in mind. Like, that's the one you can watch in the beginning of each fight, since he will always do his balls, his laser attacks, and then a stomp or his bombs, where he moves back, as I said. So that's pretty important. And of course, he will have some exhaust after such phases or stages of the fight, where you get some free damage in. That's also a bit tricky by him, since if you see in Ether Rage, this lightning mode he got, is basically it's tricky because he can bait you into moving to him. For example, if you cast hundreds and hundreds of these little balls coming at you, and you try to run to him very fast and lose all your stamina, don't go all in right away, since it's possible that he will only bait you into moving to him and then bomb you to death. Again, since he's in Ether Rage, he can do pretty much everything he wants with you, because his stamina is increased or something like that, or at least it's something it has to do with his stamina, since he has to be wrecking after it, and he's exhausted. But that's a little side note, you know, it's not happening all the time. Like in this guide, in this video, in this gameplay, it didn't happen, but in most cases it actually happens quite a lot, and that's an indicator, you know, which you at least you heard about it, you know. Worst case scenario, you might fail, you have to try again. But best case scenario, you already know what you're dealing with, so yeah, you can handle it. Another thing is, as I mentioned, you can actually dodge pretty much everything in this fight with the axe or the two-hander, instead of going with chain blades, where you have to actually leave the fight and wait for him to allow you to come back. Where I personally like to dodge basically while the lasers and those stomps are like, there are different times to dodge it, there are different ways to dodge it, of course. We will watch this in the Festival of Light at the end as well. As like this, for example, this laser, in my opinion, is pretty easy to dodge with a two-hander, because you only have to dodge one time, and that's in the middle of the laser, where actually, you know, you got enough time, or at least some measurements you can think about in your head when seeing the other lasers come at you. Where instead of with chain blades, you probably would have to get hit or try to dodge sideways and time it perfectly so you don't get hit. And you probably have to dodge 2 times, since it's since there are coming 2 lasers on the sides instead of the one in the middle. So yeah, keep that in mind, guys, and don't spare any damage on him, of course, since you see me hitting him pretty hard on the part of his tail, where there's no real drop to it. So if you're really out for the kill only, and kill only is a big thing, because sometimes people actually farm him just for the weapons and so on, but to kill him at first try, for example, for the quest, really don't hesitate hitting him everywhere you can, mainly because you have to actually break something to get him to the ground, or wait for some exhaustion for him, and that's pretty tricky, since his danger meter is actually rising pretty high, even though I'm not dying or not taking too much damage, since every damage you take increases the danger meter, and time is a factor as well. So rather be quick than, you know, getting down to danger, being a one-shot all the time when you get hit, and you have to use 2 potions, or at least 1 of the full health potions. And now we are finally at the Festival of Light. That's an indicator as well for him to be low as hell, beneath 50%, of course. The other thing is that he can be lower as well. That's no big indicator. It's just, you know, a little sign where you can actually, you know, measure a bit. The big part with this is that it's kinda RNG to dodge it. I mean, you can at least, you know, get lucky, like I did. The hardest thing about this is like the sphere is now actually no longer bugged. It's actually patched, so it kinda interrupts your sight. You know, as you can see, inside and outside there are big differences. So that's kinda lucky, or you at least I suggest you try to move your camera as well as you can to see some incoming spheres or lasers charging at you and where to dodge them. And yeah, that's basically my guide to Rezakiri, guys. If you have any questions left or want a more detailed guide, don't hesitate to leave me some feedback in the comments, or some criticism as well, since I welcome that very much. And as well, guys, feel free to check out my stream on Twitch TV. Should be a link under the video. And as always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.